We're taught to pursue happiness like it's the final destination, that if we just get the right job, the right partner, the right body, the right bank account, then we'll finally be happy. But what if that chase is exactly what's making us miserable? Aldous Huxley, author of Brave New World, warned us about this illusion long ago. He predicted a society so obsessed with comfort and pleasure that it would slowly surrender its freedom, its identity, and its soul. Today we live in a world engineered for stimulation. Scrolls, likes, clicks, dopamine hits on demand. But the more we chase happiness in the form of pleasure and escape, the more we lose the very thing we're seeking. Because happiness, as we define it, is slippery. It's fleeting. And when you base your worth on feeling good, the moment discomfort arrives, your identity crumbles. Huxley believed that when we turn happiness into a product, something to be consumed, we become slaves to it. We begin avoiding pain at all costs, numbing ourselves with distractions, and mistaking sedation for peace. But there's a deeper cost. When you run from suffering, you run from meaning. You miss out on the richness that comes from struggle, growth, and depth. Huxley wasn't anti-happiness. He was anti-delusion. He understood that a life obsessed with avoiding pain leads not to joy, but to numbness. And the irony is, the more we run from discomfort, the more it silently runs our lives. The modern society is built on the promise of happiness. Ads tell us, buy this, feel better. Fix your skin, fix your life. Take a trip, take a pill, take control. But beneath the glossy surfaces and perfect smiles lies a truth we don't want to face. We are addicted to comfort. And like any addiction, it comes with withdrawal, dependency, and a hidden price. When Huxley warned of a dystopia ruled not by force but by pleasure, he wasn't being dramatic. He saw it coming. A society lulled to sleep by noise, numbed by entertainment, and pacified by endless consumption. The scariest kind of prison isn't the one with bars. It's the one you don't even realize you're in, because it feels good. Every scroll through social media, every binge-watch session, every dopamine hit that distracts us from our boredom or pain, it all adds up. Not to fulfillment, but to numbness. We're not chasing joy. We're avoiding stillness. Because stillness means facing what's underneath. It means hearing the questions we've buried. Who am I without all this? Why do I feel empty even when everything looks fine? And so we keep running, buying, consuming, distracting. But here's what Huxley would say. When you outsource happiness, you outsource your power. You become dependent on things you can't control to feel whole. And when those things disappear, when the attention fades, the money runs out, the thrill wears off, you're left with the silence. And in that silence, the truth creeps in. You weren't free. You were sedated. What if the very thing you're running from is the doorway to what you seek? We've been taught that happiness means comfort, ease, and pleasure. That pain is a mistake, an error in the system. But what if pain is the system's way of calling you back to yourself? Carl Jung once said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." In other words, when we refuse to confront real pain, we end up suffering in all the wrong ways, anxious, numb, disconnected. We chase comfort not because it nourishes us, but because we're terrified of what might emerge if we sit in the silence. But here's the truth. Pain is information. It's not random. It's not punishment. It's not weakness. It's your psyche's way of signaling that something within you has been ignored too long. And when we avoid that message, When we suppress it with distractions, sedate it with noise, or drown it in routine, we disconnect from our depth. We become shallow versions of ourselves, drifting from one quick fix to the next, never really arriving anywhere meaningful. Collective suffering magnifies this. We live in systems that reward productivity over presence, performance over authenticity. And so, entire generations learn to suppress emotion, to armor themselves against vulnerability, to wear smiles over brokenness. We inherit not just eye color and bone structure, but coping mechanisms, unprocessed trauma, and beliefs about what pain means. And unless we choose to break the pattern, we pass it on, silently, unconsciously, generation to generation. Your anxiety might not have started with you. Your fear of failure, your drive to prove yourself, your avoidance of intimacy. These might be echoes, whispers from lives before yours, trying to find a voice through you. This is collective pain, and the first step to healing it: recognition. You must learn to distinguish what is yours and what was handed to you. Only then can you begin to choose differently. Collective trauma isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism, like the relentless need to prove your worth, like apologizing for taking up space, for asking questions, for needing rest. You weren't born this way. You were taught, by families trying to survive, by schools rewarding obedience over curiosity, by cultures that glorify self-sacrifice and call it love. And so, you internalize beliefs that were never yours to begin with. You learned that expressing sadness makes you weak, that asking for help is a burden, that your value depends on how useful you are to others. These aren't personal flaws. They're survival strategies passed down like heirlooms. Coping patterns built to keep you safe in unsafe environments. But here's the catch. What once protected you now imprisons you. What helped you avoid pain in the past now keeps you from fully living in the present. And unless you pause long enough to question these patterns, you'll keep mistaking them for your personality. This is why awareness matters. Because healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what was forgotten, reclaiming the parts of you that were silenced, not because they were wrong, but because they didn't fit the script. Think about it. How much of your behavior today is a performance? How often are you acting out a role you didn't choose? You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe the past your loyalty. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." But the soul never stops knocking. It will whisper through your fatigue. It will call out through your anxiety. It will ache in your loneliness, not to punish, but to return you to yourself. Pain doesn't only live in memories. It lives in muscles, in breath, in posture, in the space between heartbeats. You can't always think your way out of trauma, because trauma isn't only a story your mind tells. It's a rhythm your body repeats. It's a loop hardwired into your nervous system, an echo of everything you endured but never got to process. Trauma doesn't care about your insight, your books, your mantras. It only cares about one thing: survival. It learns what kept you safe once and repeats it forever. Even if it's no longer needed, even if it's slowly suffocating you. That's why your shoulders tense when the room gets quiet, why your jaw locks when someone says, "We need to talk," why your hands tremble after a conversation you thought you handled well. You're not broken. You're not dramatic. You're remembering without realizing, because the body keeps score, not with words, but with tension, with chronic fatigue, with shallow breath, with a quiet disconnection that becomes your normal. And when trauma is collective, when it's passed from one generation to the next, it hides deeper. It shows up in culture, in silence, in the things we're told not to feel, in the way we praise endurance but shame softness, in the way we call hypervigilance being strong. But your body remembers the pressure, the panic, the centuries of bracing, of being alert, of not being safe enough to rest. That's where somatic awareness begins, not as a wellness trend, but as a sacred return. A return to your breath, a return to your skin, a return to the parts of you that were never allowed to speak. It's not about fixing. It's about witnessing, listening to what trembles beneath the surface. Where do you tighten? Where do you collapse? Where do you feel absent from your own body? That's not weakness. That's a map drawn in clenched fists and held breath. A map waiting for your attention, not to be judged, but to be felt. Because a body that feels safe no longer has to live in defense. It can soften, it can trust, it can exhale. And when that exhale finally comes, after years of holding, bracing, pretending, it doesn't just release stress. It releases a generation's worth of silence. It becomes the first language of healing, a language older than words. In the next part, we'll explore how this buried pain, left untended, can mutate into something else. How repressed trauma, when unacknowledged, can quietly shape your behavior, your relationships, your sense of self. And why so much of what we call personality is often just protection in disguise. But first, notice your breath. Are you holding it? Start there. Healing is never just about you. When you start doing the work, when you stop running, stop numbing, and finally turn to face the storm, you are not just rewriting your own story. You are interrupting a legacy of silence. You are standing in the middle of a generational current and choosing, consciously, not to pass the pain forward. This isn't poetic. It's biological, neurological, generational. When you regulate your nervous system, you're not just calming your own breath. You're shifting the emotional atmosphere in every room you walk into. You're diffusing old landmines planted long before you were born. You're interrupting reactions that were never yours to carry. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming whole by reclaiming what was split. But what he also implied, what we forget too easily, is that wholeness is not a private achievement. It's a ripple, a transmission. Your healing isn't a solo act, it's a signal. Because when you change the script, you don't just free yourself. You offer a mirror to everyone still trapped in performance. You offer a rhythm that's slower, softer, more honest. You offer proof that it's possible to live from the inside out. And that changes things. It changes the way you parent, the way you partner, the way you show up in conflict, in stillness, in love. It softens what was hardened. It gives voice to what was buried. It gives permission to others who've never had it before. But let's not romanticize this path. It's not clean. It's not linear. And it's certainly not rewarded. There is no medal for choosing presence over performance. No trophy for sitting with your grief when the world begs you to smile. No applause for saying, "I won't repeat what broke me." There's just this. The quiet power of no longer abandoning yourself. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the quiet revolution begins there, in the body that no longer flinches, in the voice that no longer hides, in the life that is lived in truth instead of display. But before you walk away with hope in your chest, there's something else we need to talk about. Because when you strip away your armor, when you put down the old patterns, when you finally sit with the silence you've spent a lifetime avoiding, that's when the next trap shows up. The world doesn't want you to sit with pain. It wants you to scroll past it, to shop it away, to binge it into silence. It doesn't offer you space to feel. It offers you pleasure, stimulation, escape. But here's the problem. Pleasure without presence becomes anesthesia. Stimulation without integration becomes dependence. And slowly, quietly, you stop seeking healing. You start seeking relief. You start craving comfort, not because it nourishes you, but because it keeps you numb. So now the question isn't just, am I healing? It's this. What if the very thing that brings you comfort is the thing keeping you stuck?